Hey, everybody, welcome to another Saturday Conundrum episode. So, imagine a near future where Netflix, YouTube, and even your favorite music app use AI to generate custom content for every user. Not just recommendations, but unique, never before seen movies, shows, and songs that exist only for you. Plots bend to your mood, characters speak your language, and stories never repeat. The algorithm knows what you want before you do and delivers it instantly. Entertainment becomes endlessly satisfying and frictionless, but every experience is now private. There's no shared pop culture moment, no collective anticipation for season finale, no midnight release at a theater. Water cooler conversations fade because no two people have seen the same thing. Meanwhile, live concerts, theater, and other truly communal events become rare, almost sacred, priced at a premium for those seeking connection that algorithms can't duplicate. Some see this as the golden age of personal expression, where every story fits you perfectly. Others see it as the death of culture as we know it, with everyone living in their own narrative bubble and human creativity competing for attention with an infinite machine. Here's the infinite content conundrum. If AI can create infinite, hyper-personalized entertainment, content that's uniquely yours, always available and perfectly satisfying, do we gain a new kind of freedom and joy? Or do we risk losing the messy, unpredictable, and communal experiences that once gave meaning to culture? And if true human connection becomes rare and expensive, is it a luxury worth fighting for, or a relic that will simply fade away? What happens when stories no longer bring us together, but keep us perfectly, quietly apart? So if this is your first time joining us on a Saturday Conundrum, just know that this is not our normal show. This is something we do special every Saturday. It's a little bit of a departure from our Monday to Friday, which is a live show. That's where the name The Daily AI Show Live comes from. And you can join us live at 10 a.m. Eastern if you like, or catch us on the replays. So on Saturdays, we do this fun Conundrum episode where I do a little bit of intro like I'm doing right now, but then I'm followed by two AI podcast hosts. And the way we do that is I start by using ChatGPT and I work to get the conundrum where I like it. Then I put it into Perplexity where I have its deep research debate both sides of this conundrum. Take a look at that. And finally, it goes into Google Notebook LM where I make my last edits before we have the podcast created. And that's what you're about to hear. It's always fun, interesting. And the idea is that there's no real one right or wrong answer. It's just about having the debate, thinking deeply about some of the challenges we're going to come up with or come into over the next few years, decades, as AI becomes an even larger part of our lives. So enjoy the episode, and we'll see you next Saturday.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a pretty wild potential future today.
Yeah, it's all about AI and entertainment, but maybe not in the way people usually think.
Right, so imagine a near future where your entertainment isn't just like recommended to you. It's actually generated on the fly, specifically, uniquely, just for you.
So think Netflix or YouTube or whatever music app you use.
Exactly. But instead of picking from a library, they're creating brand new movies, shows, songs, stories, things that have never existed before.
And they're tailored precisely to you.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
The sources describe it adapting to your mood using your exact language.
Wow.
The algorithm basically knows what you want before you do, maybe.
All right.
Delivering this endless stream of perfectly fitted content.
Right. And the sources paint this picture really vividly. A world with like zero friction in entertainment, hyper-personalized everything.
But there's a catch, isn't there?
Yep.
Pretty significant shift involved.
A huge one. Because if everyone's consuming completely unique content, well, what happens to shared experience?
Yeah, no more waiting for the big season finale together.
Exactly. Or, chatting about that one scene everyone's talking about by the water cooler.
Because nobody saw the same scene, or the same show even.
No two people experience the same thing.
That feels, I don't know, kind of isolating when you put it like that.
It does. And the sources point directly to a consequence of this.
Which is?
They suggest that this intense personalization, it sort of pushes live communal events, like concerts, theater, even just watching a game together. It pushes them into becoming these rare, almost sacred experiences.
Things you have to actively seek out.
And pay a premium for.
Yeah.
They become expensive luxuries for people who are really craving that connection that the algorithms just can't fake.
Okay, so you've got this potential world of like ultimate personal satisfaction on one hand.
Maximum enjoyment, tailored just for you.
But maybe at the cost of that shared cultural glue that holds things together.
That's the divide right there.
Yeah.
The sources really frame it as this stark contrast.
So some people look at this future and see what a golden age.
Yeah, golden age of personal expression, where
Yeah.
every niche, every identity, every preference gets its own perfect narrative, its own validation.
And the other side.
They see the potential death of shared culture, society kind of fragmenting into these millions of tiny, isolated narrative bubbles.
Which really brings us right to the core question the source material is grappling with, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
If AI can create infinite, perfectly tailored content just for you, what does that actually do to us? To shared experiences, to human connection?
It's a liberation. Are we freeing ourselves from the, lowest common denominator of mass culture?
Or is it fragmentation? Does it just pull us apart into our own little worlds?
And what's really interesting is how the sources frame this whole thing. They don't just call it a tech trend.
Yeah.
They call it a fundamental philosophical divide. It goes deeper than just algorithms.
Okay.
It's about what should define human culture going forward. Is it individual satisfaction, getting exactly what you want when you want it?
Or is it communal connection, that shared understanding and experience?
Exactly. It's a huge philosophical question that suddenly has very immediate, very practical implications because the tech is actually making it real.
Right. It's not science fiction anymore. Okay, so let's dive into that first side then, the liberation argument, as the sources call it. Why is this personalized future presented as a good thing?
Well, it kicks off with a premise the sources label the death of cultural tyranny.
Cultural tyranny sounds dramatic.
It is, a bit. But the idea is that mass entertainment, historically, has always been a compromise
Right. Okay, yeah.
to appeal to the biggest audience possible.
Exactly. Aiming for that lowest common denominator. And in doing that, it often ignores or maybe even distorts individual experiences, different identities, different values.
Because you can't possibly represent everyone when you're trying to reach everyone. Traditional media has definitely struggled with that, often excluding or, tokenizing diverse communities.
Precisely. And so this liberation argument sees AI as a potential solution, a form of democratization. How so?
Well, by analyzing all your data viewing history, sure, but also maybe emotions, cultural background, your specific circumstances, the AI could create content that doesn't just entertain you, but actively validates your individual existence. That's the phrase they use.
Wow. So instead of searching for scraps of representation in mainstream stuff,
You get content created specifically for, say, the sources give examples like a Latino teenager in rural Texas,
okay.
or an elderly Japanese woman, or maybe a neurodivergent individual, content that truly acknowledges their full humanity, as the sources put it.
So it kind of bypasses all those historical gatekeepers and blind spots of mass media.
That's the hope, yeah. It gets rid of the need for compromise.
Okay, that's powerful. What else does the liberation side argue?
Well, there's the efficiency revolution. Think about how we find stuff to watch or listen to now.
Yeah. Lots of scrolling, lots of starting things and stopping 5 minutes later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sources point out this enormous inefficiency in our current consumption habits. All that time wasted searching, the disappointment when something doesn't click.
Tell me about it. Definitely inefficient.
So the argument goes, AI delivers immediate gratification. It optimizes your human consciousness, they say.
Optimizes consciousness. How?
By freeing up your mental energy and your actual time. Instead of searching and hoping and maybe being disappointed,
You just get the perfect thing instantly.
content is basically guaranteed to hit the spot, enhance your mood, match exactly what you need right then. Maximum enjoyment, minimum effort.
And the sources actually have data to back this efficiency idea up, don't they?
They do. They mention that hyper-personalized recommendations and you can imagine generated content would be even more effective, show measurable increases in all the key metrics.
Like user engagement, satisfaction.
Engagement, satisfaction, retention, yeah. Users spend more time actually consuming, less time searching. They report feeling more satisfied.
And they feel a stronger connection.
But to the experience.
Yeah,
Not necessarily other people, right?
That's a key distinction, yes. A connection to their personalized experience. And the sources argue this represents a quantifiable improvement in human well-being. Your leisure time becomes maximally effective, maximally enjoyable.
Okay, validation, efficiency.
Yeah.
What about creativity? Doesn't tailoring everything perfectly kind of kill creativity, make it all bland?
That's a common concern, but the liberation argument actually flips it. They call this creative liberation.
How does that work?
Well, customization removes the constraints of market appeal. Suddenly, stories don't need to chase the broadest possible audience to justify their existence.
Right. Because the audience is just you, or people
Yeah,
exactly
good.
like you.
Exactly. So creators or the AI can explore unlimited narrative possibilities. Think really experimental structures, super niche interests, stuff that would never get greenlit in the old system.
So you could have, like, amazing content made in endangered languages. Yes. Or narratives reflecting tiny microcultural experiences. Or stories exploring really abstract philosophical concepts. Things that just don't have a mass market.
It could lead to an explosion of creative diversity, as the sources say, honoring the full spectrum of human experience in a way mass media never could.
That's the vision. And they even talk about dynamic storytelling.
What's that?
Narratives that aren't fixed.
Mm-hmm.
They could branch based on your choices. Characters could develop differently depending on your preferences. The story could adapt in real time to your reactions.
Whoa. So it's not just passive consumption. It's interactive, evolving. A living narrative just for you.
Pretty much. It's a very compelling case they built for this future.
It really is. Personal validation, maximum efficiency, maybe an unprecedented explosion of creativity. But, okay, there's that other shoe waiting to drop.
There is the fragmentation argument. And it paints a much, much darker picture.
Right. So what's their starting point, their main premise?
Their premise is what they call the collapse of cultural coherence. This argument leans heavily on the idea that shared stories, common references, collective experiences, these aren't just nice-to-haves. They are essential for social cohesion.
The glue that holds society together.
Exactly. And so, if everyone is consuming completely unique, personalized content,
then that cultural common ground just evaporates.
it gets destroyed, yeah, potentially fragmenting society into just collections of isolated individuals, each in their own little bubble.
And they look at history for this.
They do. They make a historical case that shared moments, whether it's ancient myths told around a fire, or everyone reading the same Dickens novel, or watching the moon landing on TV.
Those big shared events.
Those moments create a common vocabulary, shared values, a sense of collective identity. And the fear is, if we lose that bedrock of shared culture, fragmentation is almost inevitable.
Which connects directly to something we hear a lot about already, echo chambers.
Precisely. This argument sees hyper-personalization as echo chambers on steroids. Individuals risk getting trapped in increasingly narrow worldviews.
Because you're only ever fed stuff that confirms what you already think or like.
Right. You're never challenged, never exposed to different perspectives in the same way.
And the sources mention actual modeling, like mathematical models.
Yeah, they reference mathematical modeling of social networks. Apparently, these studies suggest that once personalization hits a certain level,
society just breaks apart.
It can inevitably fragment, is the term used, into groups that are really internally cohesive. Everyone inside agrees, but they become hostile toward other groups.
Oh, wow. And they're saying this is like a predictable outcome based on how networks behave.
That's the argument presented, yes.
Yeah.
Based on the modeling.
And they connect this theoretical risk to things we're actually seeing now.
Definitely. They point to contemporary examples, like how social media algorithms are often blamed for contributing to unprecedented political polarization.
Right, and the spread of conspiracy theories and just general social fragmentation.
The concern is that people lose the capacity for empathy, for compromise, when their information diet consists solely of things that confirm their existing biases.
Okay, that's worrying. What else does the fragmentation side bring up?
There's a really unsettling economic angle they introduce, the commodification of human connection.
The commodification?
Yeah.
So connection becomes something you buy and sell.
Sort of. The argument is that authentic, messy, real human connection becomes a luxury commodity, something primarily for the wealthy.
How does that follow from personalized AI content?
Well, if the AI provides infinite, perfect, super cheap individual satisfaction, it basically makes those shared cultural events we talked about, live concerts, theater, communal viewing parties, financially unsustainable for the mass market.
The demand dries up because the personalized alternative is so good and so cheap.
Exactly. So things like live performance might survive, but only for those who could afford the high ticket prices.
So shared storytelling, which, historically often cross class lines, think public libraries, broadcast TV.
Right, often accessible.
That could potentially become a two-tiered cultural system. The rich get real human interaction, real shared events.
And everyone else gets the algorithm's perfect, but ultimately artificial substitute.
Yeah, that's a grim outlook.
It leads into the psychological implications, too.
Okay.
The sources cite research stuff we probably all intuitively know, emphasizing that humans need genuine social connection. For mental health, for well-being, it's fundamental.
Sure, we're social creatures.
But the worry here is that if AI provides these seemingly satisfying, but ultimately artificial substitutes,
We might stop bothering with the real thing.
or lose the skills for it, individuals might lose the motivation or even the practical ability to navigate authentic relationship formation.
Because real relationships are messy.
They're messy. They involve unpredictability and compromise, things the perfectly tailored AI bubble protects you from. So do we become incapable of dealing with that necessary messiness?
That's a deep concern. Is there more?
One final major point from the fragmentation side, the death of cultural evolution.
Okay, how does culture die if there's infinite content? Seems counterintuitive.
Well, the argument is that culture doesn't just evolve through more content. It advances through creative tension, through unexpected combinations, the collision of different perspectives. Serendipity, almost.
Things you wouldn't have chosen, but that challenge you or show you something new.
Exactly. And when you only consume content that's perfectly tailored to you based on your past preferences, you risk missing out on those encounters.
You lose exposure to genuinely challenging ideas or unfamiliar aesthetic approaches, or those really transformative artistic experiences that often come from completely left field.
Right. So you might end up in a state of what they call cultural stagnation,
Yeah.
disguised as infinite choice.
It looks like diversity, but it's actually just reinforcing your own patterns over and over.
Yeah. And there's a fear the algorithms themselves could become these invisible cultural gatekeepers. By subtly shaping our preferences over time, optimizing for engagement rather than, say, intellectual challenge or artistic novelty, they could inadvertently homogenize consciousness, narrowing the range of human experience and imagination, even while offering limitless options within that narrowing range.
Wow. Okay, so bringing it all together, we have this incredibly stark contrast.
We really do. On one side, this vision of ultimate personal fulfillment, validation, hyper-efficiency, and explosion of niche creativity.
And on the other side, social atomization, inescapable echo chambers, real connection becoming a luxury, psychological detachment, and maybe even cultural stagnation.
It's intense. And the sources conclude that this isn't just, an interesting thought experiment. It highlights a fundamental tension.
Between individual satisfaction and collective cohesion.
Yeah. And it's not like one side is clearly right and the other is wrong. Both perspectives, as presented in the sources, have compelling evidence and logical reasoning behind them.
You've got the measurable benefits, the efficiency gains, the creative possibilities.
Quantifiable stuff.
Versus these huge, perhaps harder to measure, but potentially devastating risks: fragmentation, commodification, stagnation.
Exactly. And so as the sources really hammer home, the debate ultimately boils down to that core philosophical question. Is human flourishing fundamentally an individual pursuit, or is it a collective one?
And it's a question that's not academic anymore.
No, it demands, as they say, immediate practical resolution, because the technology is here, or very nearly here, and it's actively reshaping culture as we speak.
It really forces you, the listener, to think hard about what you value most. So here's something to mull over, based only on what we've explored today from the sources. Given this potential for infinite, perfect personal satisfaction and the simultaneous potential for deep social fragmentation, which of those outcomes feels more inevitable to you? And maybe more importantly, what do these arguments suggest you might need to consciously do to seek out or protect shared experiences in the face of this technological wave?